Welcome to the deep dive. And today you are really going to want to strap in because we are doing something a little different.
Oh, yeah, it's a fun one today.
We are doing a live action tactical breakdown of, honestly, one of the most intense and mathematically complex sports in the magical world. I am talking, of course, about Mannheim Academy Manaball.
Right, which, if you haven't seen it, it's pure chaos. Beautiful chaos, but chaos.
Exactly. And our mission today is to pull you, the listener, right up here into the announcer's booth with us. We want to call a very specific match that perfectly illustrates the underlying philosophy of this sport.
And we brought the receipts for this one.
We really did. We've got a fascinating stack of sources in front of us. We are pulling directly from the official Manaball rulebook, some highly detailed scouting reports on team strategies, and the actual official season match logs.
Yeah, and our lens today is locked entirely on Game 10 of the season.
Right, Game 10.
Because it is just a phenomenal case study to unpack.
Yeah.
Analysts widely consider Game 10 a masterclass because it gives us this pure, unadulterated clash of fundamental philosophies.
The unstoppable force meeting the immovable object.
Exactly. We're looking at the tactical war between the Crimson Tigers, who rely on relentless, overwhelming aggression, going up against the verdant deer, who utilize this unbreakable, almost agonizing level of patience.
It's incredible.
Anyone wondering whether a structurally perfect defense can truly stop an unstoppable offense is going to find the answer right here in the mechanics of this specific matchup.
So here is how we're going to do this. I'm going to be driving the play-by-play, pulling the real-time data from these match logs while you break down the underlying magical theory and the formations.
Sounds good.
But let's unpack the arena first, because you really cannot fully grasp the strategy of Manaball without understanding the physical and magical constraints of the dome itself. The scouting reports actually refer to this as four-dimensional hockey.
Which is honestly the best description for it.
It's played in this massive transparent dome, 210 feet long, 95 feet wide, and 30 feet high. And the absolute core of this space is what they call the flight band.
Right. The flight band is where the physics of the game get truly fascinating. The arena is basically divided into three distinct vertical layers. You have the upper layer near the ceiling, the neutral plane slicing right through the middle, and the lower layer beneath it.
And that neutral plane isn't just empty air, right?
No, not at all. It's a semi-solid magical platform. Players can literally skate right across it on their mana boots, stand on it, or, and this is the crazy part, if they shift their magical resonance, they can pass straight through it.
Just dive right through the floor.
Exactly. Dive into the layer below or launch up into the layer above.
And reading through the rule book here, the gravity in this dome does not behave like normal Earth gravity. The entire space is governed by a localized mana gravity field. It pulls everything toward that central neutral plane, not the physical floor of the arena.
And that structural choice by the Academy's architects dictates the entire meta of the sport.
How so?
Well, the mana gravity gently pulls the players and the enchanted orb toward the center. So if you fly 15 feet up into the upper layer, the field drags you back down. If you dive 15 feet into the lower layer, you naturally drift back up.
So it's constantly trying to center you.
Right. It forces the baseline action to center around the middle while heavily penalizing players who spend too much time fighting the gravity in those extreme vertical zones. Sustaining altitude requires burning massive amounts of personal magical stamina.
Which brings us perfectly to the aggressors of Game 10, the Crimson Tigers. Looking at their scouting report, their entire team identity is built on defying that gravity penalty to control the entire three-dimensional field.
They do not care about the stamina drain.
Not at all. They play a highly aggressive 3-2-1 system. That means 3 centers operating in the middle, 2 strikers hovering in the vertical spaces, and only 1 dedicated defender.
Yeah, the Tigers are banking on tempo over sustainability. They want to use all 3 vertical layers to dominate possession so thoroughly that their lack of defense never even gets exposed.
A good offense is the best defense.
Exactly. Their centers rotate constantly to create this swarm effect. I mean, let's look at their commander, Liz Hadbucks. She utilizes morphomancy.
Shifting her physical form.
Right. In a tactical sense, she is micro-shifting her muscle density in real time. She can bulk her upper body strength for a fraction of a second to launch a massive cross-arena pass, and then immediately shift that mass down to her legs for explosive skating speed.
And paired with her is their playmaker, Sydney Distancek, who the reports list as an Ecologics user. The logs say during warm-ups, she is manipulating the microclimate inside the dome, specifically the air resistance.
She creates these localized slipstreams.
Yes, essentially vacuums of zero friction. So when she passes the orb, it travels at velocities that shouldn't be physically possible. I mean, the Tiger's philosophy is simply to overwhelm the opponent by turning the dome into a non-stop, multi-vector battlefield.
But then on the other side of the neutral plane, we have their ultimate foil,
The verdant deer.
the verdant deer. They are built to break teams like the Tigers. If the Crimson lineup is a hurricane, the deer are a reinforced concrete bunker. They run a highly defensive 1-2-3 system.
Just one lone striker up front.
Yep, one striker, two centers to contest the middle, and a massive, unyielding wall of three defenders.
What really stands out to me in the Deer's playbook is their sheer refusal to fight for the airspace. They completely concede the upper layer to the Tigers. They just let them have it.
It's brilliant, honestly.
Instead, they dominate the lower layer. They absorb the pressure, clog the passing lanes on the neutral plane, and wait for the opponent to make a fatal error.
It is an exercise in extreme discipline. Just look at their defensive anchors. You have Leah Wiscathi, who utilizes mycomancy.
Mushroom magic.
Yeah, fun guy. She isn't just watching the play. She is seeding the semi-solid neutral plane with an invisible network of magical fungal spores. She can physically feel the vibrations of the opposing player's mana boots through this network.
That's wild. She knows where they are without looking.
Exactly. She knows where the Tigers are instantly.
Yeah.
And behind her is the freshman guardian, Carter Vobbs, whose graviturgy magic makes him a physical anomaly in front of the goal ring.
It is a profound stylistic clash. And as we look at the opening face-off here in the logs, I want you, the listener, to consider your own approach to high-stakes problem-solving.
Oh, that's a great point.
Because some situations demand the Tiger's approach, right? Overwhelming a challenge with sheer force, volume, and visibility. But other times, you need to be the deer, patiently absorbing the pressure, staying out of the chaotic airspace, and waiting for the absolute perfect opening to strike.
Game 10 puts both of those operational styles under the microscope. And let me tell you, the physiological toll of playing either of these systems for 3 periods is immense.
All right, let's get into the booth. The head arbiter is at center dome with the enchanted mana orb. It's slightly larger than a traditional hockey puck, radiating this faint violet luminescence. The transparent arcane barriers are humming. Both teams are hovering on their mana boots, locking into their formations.
You can feel the tension.
The whistle sounds, the orb drops, and we are tracking the live action in the Manaheim Dome.
Notice the Tigers' immediate activation of their swarm strategy. They do not let the orbs settle on the neutral plane for even a single second.
Tiger centers Liz Hadbucks and Sarah Vanderbilt instantly pinch the center. Hadbucks takes possession, uses that morphomancy to anchor her core, and launches a massive aerial pass straight up into the upper layer. The verticality is instantaneous.
This forces the deer to make a split-second decision. The Tigers are sending their 2 strikers, Autumn Fallon and Ty Clyde, rocketing up into that upper layer. They are setting up for their signature downward spike shots.
And most defensive lines in this league would instinctively fly up to contest them, right?
Oh, absolutely. They'd burn their own magical reserves to meet them in the air.
But the Deer's defensive line does the exact opposite. They're calmly sinking. All 3 defenders are collapsing their formation tight around the 8-by-6-foot goal ring on the neutral plane. Up top, Fallon intercepts the aerial pass. She uses her mana boots to invert her personal gravity, fighting the dome's safety enchantments to accelerate downward. She unleashes a blistering spike shot toward the ring.
And we really need to break down the physics of what Fallon just did. By accelerating downward with the mana gravity pulling her, she is multiplying the kinetic energy of that shot exponentially. It is carrying hundreds of pounds of magical force.
With the meteor coming down.
Exactly. But this is exactly where Carter Vobbs earns his roster spot. As a graviturgy user, he alters the localized gravity around his own body, effectively making himself way over 800 pounds for a split second.
He just roots himself to the floor.
He anchors himself completely inside the Guardian Circle.
Vobbs tracks the downward trajectory. He swats it away with his monastic, and you can see the defensive crystals in the shaft flare blindingly bright as they absorb all that kinetic energy.
The structural integrity of his defense holds, but the Tigers' forechecking strategy is designed to prevent the deer from ever resetting.
They are relentless. The Tigers are utilizing bank passes off the curved dome glass, lift passes to the roof, drop passes to the floor. The deer are trapped deep in their defensive zone, weathering a suffocating storm of offensive vectors.
Or a blender.
According to the match logs, the deer are trapped in their own zone for almost 3 full minutes. Distancic intercepts a desperate clearing attempt from the deer. She uses her ecologics to create a friction void slipstream right through the middle of the deer's formation. Ty Clyde intercepts the feed. He snaps a quick wrist shot from the neutral plane, and it crosses the threshold.
There it is.
First blood goes to the Crimson Tigers. The relentless, suffocating cycle of pressure finally cracks the armor. 1-0 Tigers midway through the first period.
But connecting this to the season-long data in the scouting reports, the deer's bench is completely unfazed by this.
Really? They're not panicking?
Not at all. Giving up an early goal against a 3-2-1 system is a calculated risk. They are forcing the Tigers to burn massive amounts of personal mana to maintain that upper layer dominance. The deer are playing a long game of physiological endurance. They're betting that the Tigers will accumulate magical fatigue faster than the deer accumulate structural damage.
That is ice cold. Moving into the second period, the match logs highlight a severe spike in physical penalties. The physical intensity ramps up significantly. Manaball allows for legal contact, right? Heavy body checks and aggressive stick lifts. And the Tigers' lone defender, Chad Griffith, is officially making his presence known on the neutral plane.
Griffith is a fascinating tactical piece. He's classified as a B-tier enforcer, also utilizing morphomancy. Because the Tigers only field one defender, his sole responsibility is to maintain offensive zone time.
How does he do it by himself?
He does it by increasing his skeletal density and throwing devastating hits along the perimeter. This prevents the deer from transitioning out of their zone. He is acting as a one-man wrecking crew to keep the puck locked in the deer's half.
Griffith is throwing his weight around, pinning the deer's wingers against the arcane barriers. The Tigers are flying high, smelling blood in the water, looking for that 2-goal cushion. Hadbucks and Distancic push the orb deep into the offensive zone once again. They are swarming the slot, committing all 3 centers to the attack.
And this is the exact micro moment the deer's coaching staff has been waiting for.
The trap.
The trap. The Tigers are relying entirely on Griffith to hold the blue line. But by pushing all 3 centers so deep into the opponent's territory, they are leaving the lower layer behind them completely undefended.
Let's see it play out. The Tigers attempt another localized lift pass to the upper layer, but Leah Wisketh steps up. Her mycomancy network must have sensed the shift in the Tigers' weight distribution because she anticipates the pass perfectly. She intercepts it, and instead of clearing it forward, she dives straight down into the lower layer, pulling the orb with her.
It's beautiful.
The Tigers' centers are caught completely flat-footed on the neutral plane.
We're watching the forest trap execute in real time. As the Tigers collapse their entire formation around the offensive slot, the deer effectively pull the floor out from under them. They transition the orb to the lower layer, completely bypassing the Tigers' heavy hitters on the neutral plane.
Wisketh launches a booming breakout pass from 30 feet below the main action. It cuts upward through the semi-solid plane at a sharp angle. And waiting patiently at center dome, hovering just above the neutral plane, is the deer's lone striker, Val Magnotti.
And the scouting reports list Magnotti as an A-tier sniper utilizing biometabolics. While the Tiger strikers have been exhausting themselves flying up and down the vertical planes, Magnotti has been coasting.
Just waiting.
She hasn't been back-checking at all.
Wow.
She is entirely fresh, waiting for this specific counterattack geometry to align.
Magnotti catches the upward pass in stride. She is on a pure, uncontested breakaway. The Tiger's guardian, Devin Grazzo, comes out to the edge of his crease to challenge her. The logs show Grazzo is an A-tier demonology user. He is summoning minor spatial rifts around his goal ring to randomly deflect incoming shots.
Grazzo's spatial rifts are incredibly difficult to read, but Magnotti isn't even trying to shoot through them. She activates her biometabolics, flooding her own cellular structure with localized oxygen and adrenaline. She is literally overriding normal human physiological limits for about 3 seconds.
Magnotti hits a burst of speed that blurs on the monitors. She fakes a high arc shot to draw Grazzo's spatial rifts upward, drops her shoulder, and executes a brilliant lightning-fast drive shot right beneath his block. The orb shatters the threshold. Goal for the verdant deer. We are tied up at 1 apiece.
That entire sequence is an absolute masterclass in tactical patience. The deer allowed the Tigers to expend their energy, throwing heavy hits and maintaining altitude. Then, in a 5-second window, they flipped the entire vertical geometry of the arena and scored from a layer the Tigers had completely ignored.
The structural discipline turning defense into immediate lethal offense. So digging into the match logs for the third period, this tension just holds on a knife's edge. Both teams managed to find the net one more time during a chaotic, highly physical exchange deep in the third frame, locking the game at a deeply tense 2-2 tie as regulation time bleeds out.
And the most revealing statistic from those third-period logs is the shot differential. By the end of regulation, the Crimson Tigers have outshot the Verdant Deer 25-23. It might seem close, but look at the location data for those shots.
Yeah, I see it here in the spatial breakdown. The Tigers are throwing high-danger shots from the upper layer repeatedly, forcing Carter Vobbs to absorb massive kinetic impacts. Vobbs is playing out of his mind. His save percentage is the only statistical anomaly keeping the Deer in this game under the continuous swarm.
Vobbs is bearing the absolute brunt of the Tigers' strategy. He is using graviturgy to anchor against 25 separate strikes. It proves the Deer's defensive structure and their tight positional control around that guardian circle can mathematically hold up against the most explosive offense in the league.
Provided their guardian can withstand the physical toll.
Exactly.
But let's pause and look at what is happening on the benches as regulation time runs out and the horn sounds. The score remains 2-2. We are heading into a 5-minute sudden death overtime. Next goal wins the match.
The intermission before sudden death is where the psychological game really takes over. We are talking about mana depletion syndrome at this stage of the match.
Which is brutal.
It is. Burning magical energy for 60 real-time minutes creates a buildup of magical fatigue that mimics severe lactic acid. The player's reflexes slow down, their spells become slightly less stable.
And the match logs show a slight drop in the Tigers' overall skating velocity during the final 10 minutes of the third period. The Deer's coaching staff is betting everything on that fatigue. They are assuming the Tigers do not have the magical reserves left to sustain their three-dimensional assault in overtime.
Right, because sudden death usually forces teams into a highly conservative posture. The fear of making a single match-ending mistake causes players to collapse defensively and avoid high-risk passes. The Deer's 1-2-3 system is naturally built for this exact environment.
But the Crimson Tigers playbook does not contain the word conservative. The arbiter signals for the overtime faceoff. The orb drops. The Tigers center, Hadbucks, wins the draw immediately. And instead of dropping back to set up a controlled play, the Tigers completely abandon all caution. They are aligning for their most aggressive signature maneuver.
Oh wow, they are executing the Crimson Collapse. It's an all-or-nothing tactical gamble.
All three Tigers centers, Hadbucks, Distance Seek, and Vanderbilt, push across the center line into the offensive zone simultaneously. They are no longer rotating to cover each other. They are swarming the neutral plane as a single, overwhelming unit.
Track the vertical movement here. The two strikers, Fallon and Clyde, are already at the absolute ceiling of the dome. The Tigers are utilizing all 9 playable grids of the arena simultaneously. They're forcing the Deer to process 5 different vectors of attack at once.
The sheer geometry of the attack completely overwhelms the Deer's defensive zone. The Tiger centers are firing blindingly fast thread passes back and forth across the neutral plane, deliberately stretching the Deer's 3 defenders out of their tight formation around the goal ring.
The Deer's zone collapse defense is incredibly resilient, but it is fundamentally designed to handle linear, predictable attacks. By pushing 3 centers horizontally across the plane, while simultaneously dropping 2 strikers vertically from the ceiling, the Tigers are breaking the mathematical limits of the Deer's defensive coverage.
Hadbucks receives a pass in the slot. She fakes a standard drive shot to freeze the defense. Instead, she gets her stick under the orb and lifts it. It is an arc pass straight up to the roof. Clyde tracks it. He kicks his mana boots into overdrive, actively fighting the safety enchantments to accelerate his downward dive. He is turning his entire body into a kinetic missile. Vobbs anchors himself with graviturgy in the crease. Clyde swings his monastic with everything he has left, a blistering downward spike shot.
The velocity on that shot is just absurd given the stage of the game.
The orb streaks downward. It clips the shoulder pad of a Deer defender attempting to block it. The deflection slightly alters the trajectory. It bypasses Vobbs' anchored position and sneaks right into the netting. The horn blasts. The Crimson Tigers take Game 10, winning 3-2 in sudden death overtime.
Just wow. The tactical breakdown of that final play is breathtaking. If we analyze the post-game box score, the statistics tell a very compelling story about strategy versus outcome. Devin Grazzo gets the official Guardian win for the Tigers, but the true standout performance is Carter Vobbs.
Looking at the final numbers, Vobbs faced 25 high-velocity shots from the most aggressively tuned team in the entire league. He only let in 3, and that final game winner required a brutal, unpredictable deflection to beat his graviturgy anchor.
The Tigers walked away with the points in the standings, sure, but the fact that this specific match had to go to sudden death overtime provides a vital lesson. It proves that within the rules of Manaball, a perfectly executed defensive structure, a strategy rooted entirely in patience and counterattacking, can go toe-to-toe with overwhelming talent and absolute chaos, nearly neutralizing it completely.
Taking a step back from the magical theory and the scouting reports for a second, the broader application of this match is deeply relevant for you listening right now. It serves as a perfect mirror for how we approach our own structural bottlenecks or high-pressure environments. The Tigers secured their victory because they maximized their control of the upper layer. They leaned heavily into aggression, high visibility, and overwhelming force to dictate the terms of the engagement.
But the Verdant Deer nearly stole the match, and arguably dictated the pace of the game by mastering the lower layer. They utilized the invisible space, the space of profound patience, of absorbing external pressure and waiting for the opposing force to overextend and exhaust itself.
It is a critical framework to apply to your own daily challenges. When you are facing a massive hurdle, a tough project, a difficult coworker, whatever it is, are you defaulting to the Tigers' strategy? Are you constantly trying to fly above the problem, spending massive amounts of energy to strike from the top?
Sometimes you just don't have the stamina for that.
Exactly. Sometimes the more effective, sustainable strategy is to sink down, fortify your position, set a trap in the lower layer, and wait for the exact mathematical moment to launch a counterattack. Understanding the underlying rules of the system you are operating in allows you to locate those hidden, low-energy advantages.
It ultimately comes down to knowing your own operational identity.
Mm.
We see teams utilizing rigid structure, teams relying on pure speed, teams like the Tigers using brute force domination, and teams like the Deer using weaponized patience. They're all playing under the exact same rulebook within the exact same dome, but their personal philosophy fundamentally changes how the physics of the game apply to them.
Before we close the book on Game 10, I want to leave you with a final, slightly mind-bending thought experiment based on the physics of this arena. We know the entire meta of this sport. The Tiger's high-altitude dives and the Deer's upward counterattacks is anchored by the dome's mana-gravity gently pulling everything toward that central neutral plane.
Right, it's the foundational constraint that makes the entire 3-2-1 or 1-2-3 tactical systems viable in the first place.
So imagine if, next season, the Academy's arcane engineers inverted that gravity field. What if the mana-gravity pushed objects away from the center, aggressively repelling players toward the ceiling and the floor?
Oh man, that single environmental tweak would instantly render decades of playbook theory obsolete.
Completely.
The Tigers would require catastrophic amounts of magical energy just to stay near the neutral plane to pass the puck. Meanwhile, the Deer's lower layer traps would leave them hopelessly pinned to the physical floor of the dome, totally unable to launch an upward counterattack.
It is a fascinating scenario to visualize the next time you are convinced you have a completely flawless, unbeatable strategy mapped out for a project or a negotiation. What happens to your perfectly designed playbook when the fundamental underlying gravity of your situation reverses without warning? Do you have the tactical flexibility to abandon your upper layer strategies and rewrite your entire approach on the fly?
That is an exceptional question to end our tactical breakdown on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive and writing out the live broadcast from the announcer's booth. Until next time, keep your eyes on the upper layer, but never forget about the traps waiting in the deep.